Hello, Shara and stuff. Hi, this is Veronica, and thanks for coming to this unexpected um, episode of the Unwritten Walkthroughs. Those of you, oh, hi. Sorry, I just looked at chat and it's like, oh, people are responding to me. I should say I should interact with my audience. Hi there, Shara Bashimte, Mastra Maron, Salutat. Yeah. So yeah, um, those of you who were here last week should remember that I said I wouldn't be here because we're going on vacation. Um, and it turns out our vacation got canceled due to medical issues. Um, Unfortunately, my lovely and brilliant partner and co-founder of Inkworks, Ellery, she got appendicitis. So um, we're here. I'm a little less prepared than usual, if you can believe that, because I wasn't really. I kind of decided at the last minute I'd go ahead and do this. So, hopefully you were willing to work with me on it. We'll see if the sound works properly, since I can never quite seem to get that right. But we'll go from there. Uh, as usual, if you like what we're doing here and want to see more of this type of thing or more of any type of thing, um, go ahead and go over to our Patreon. Links down there at the bottom of the screen. Join up. The more people we get signed up, the more money we get, the more things that we can do. We've got all sorts of ideas and very little time and resources. So the more you can give, the better. Um, Also, I want to give a few of my other standard things. Thanks for the sound check, by the way. One a few of my other standard things. Buy Cyan products. Cyan is awesome. Cyan just today, um, I think it was today, released information about some of the advanced graphics options that the new Myst game will be supporting. So you can take a look at that and see, how Cyan is preparing uh, Myst for the next generation. So yeah, we're going to be going through Riven today. I will put another warning up front: is that I have not played Riven as much as I've played Myst, which means that I don't have everything memorized. So you'll probably see me bungle around and make wrong turns and all that sort of thing. Um, so once again, you know, hope you guys are willing to work with me on that, and we will see what we can do. So the game is running. I'm running this off of GOG, and it's running in Scum VM of all things. Um, so I'm not entirely certain how well it's going to work and what it's going to look like. Um, but we'll go from there. Let me see, do a quick sound check, make sure I got. That's what I thought. Things are not coming through there. Let me figure out my sound problems. So, people in the audience, this is your time to make, you know, comments from the gallery in terms of, how will I manage to actually control my sound. Um, okay, let's do that there. Let's make this change here. And let's see how we do. There we go. Look at that. Sound coming through the right thing, and you guys might even be able to hear it. So, um, we will go ahead and try this out. Let's start up a new game. Yeah, but I have to admit, my process for playing a Myst game is pretty chaotic at first. I have a tendency to just kind of click on things and see what, how's that move? How's that move? I wonder what that says. Um, and it's pretty chaotic until I kind of start to get a sense for things. After I started playing with things, like, oh, if I click this over here, then that happens over there, and then I start to narrow down what I'm doing. But but yeah, so hopefully we won't be able to see too much of that. But okie doke, let's start up a new game. Ubisoft. We won't make any comments about Ubisoft. At least no public comments. Classic old cyan intro. Yay, the sound is working. Okie doke. Beginning right at the end of Mist.
Thank God you've returned. I need your help. There's a great deal of history that you should know, but I'm afraid that I must continue my writing. Here. Most of what you'll need to know is in there. Keep it well hidden. For all reasons you'll discover, I can't send you to Riven with a way out. But I can give you this.
Keep it secret. Keep it
There appears to be a linking book back here to Dunny. But it's actually a one-man prison. You'll need it, I'm afraid, to capture Gan. Once you've found Catherine, signal me, and I'll come with a linking book to bring us back.
That's a big book. You know, it's only written about halfway through it, though.
There's also a chance, if this all goes well, that I might be able to get you back to the place that you came from.
Oh yeah, you have a life, don't you? Not just helping me. See, I hate when my day starts like this. Just popping in, suddenly, poof, cage. Ah, and here's Cho, one of our favorites.
Cho?
Cho!
Feriaje.
Una tuta solo son bishele dun jaba. Sorry, wrong show.
Tagema. Rekoa. Tagema. Musu rekoa. Wisirapo. Wisirapo. Umutika bukuwa nai. Wisirapo. Umutika bukuwa nai. Bukuwa nai. Wisirapo. Bukuwa nai. Bukuwa nai. Bukuwa nai. Bukuwa nai.
He's having a worse day than I am. I mean, I'm in a cage, but, he just gets, knocked out. And if I remember correctly, this person right here is actually Ryan Miller. Okie doke. Well, once again, we've got sort of, we we get sort of a, opening of a missed game where we were not really told what's going on, and we're just kind of dumped into it. Um, Obviously, we get a little bit more information than we got before. You know, we're told, that this dude's gonna send us through with a book, and we've got, a book that we can read, and it should tell us all the things. Um, and it starts immediately after Mist. So if you haven't played Mist, then you're even more out of sorts than you might usually expect to be. Um, but but yeah, this is immediately happening after Mist. So in theory, there's been maybe minutes, maybe an hour or two or something. But hi, and here's the cover to the Star Fissure telescope. Obviously, I'm not quite you know I'm talking about things in a sort of a spoilery sort of way. Um, I think this is one of Cyan's more devious little bits here. Is that the last thing that you have to do in the game is the first thing you run into. Um, and everybody kind of like, oh, let's click on this, let's click on that, let's move it back. You know, I haven't turned the power on. Yeah, just remember that. Um, I forget where I turned the power on this one for this thing. Back that way, but yeah. And the funny thing is that when I've watched people play this a lot, they spend a lot of time right here because you're like, oh my gosh, look, here's the first puzzle, and it's the last puzzle. And so a lot of people spend the rest of the game looking for numbers, trying to figure out like, okay, how do I open this? There are 5 buttons. Oh, like 5 numbers. That's got to mean those things back here. So, yeah, Cyan has a small sadistic streak when it comes to this sort of thing. There's Parcho. Alas, Parcho. We didn't know him very well, but okay. So we take a look around. You know, Once again, we've got the mighty dagger, and the entrance there. We'll go up here to the temple, and we'll take a quick look around. So this is a place where the visual medium can communicate a lot more than just describing things. I mean, you could if you were running a game, you can say, well, okay, there's all these different murals, and this one shows so and so, like some person with a book behind their head and like floating across the sky, and all the other people are like reaching up and worshiping them, that sort of thing. I mean, and you can say that, and very often that's just what I'll do is I don't prepare a lot of materials before game. Especially things that like, oh look, there's a picture, I'll just describe it. But especially if there's already like some graphics out there for what you're doing, or you can put some graphics together. It really is the whole sort of cliche of a picture being 1,000 words. You can just show somebody this picture and go, look, okay, this is one of the pictures there. And this tells you a lot more about Gen and the environment and that sort of thing. than trying to describe it. Um, at the same time, by just saying, here's the picture, you are putting a lot of faith into your players to get the idea that you want across from them, want to get across to them. They look at it and you're like, okay, they're obviously going to see X, and that's not necessarily going to be the case. The power of doing the description yourself is that you can communicate subtext as well. When you're saying it's like, it's sort of this, the people are reaching up. They're obviously, sort of worshiping the central figure. It's obvious, it's done like, a bit like a stained glass sort of thing. So it's, allegorical, or so there's a strength in either way. If you provide an actual image, that's something that the visual people in your group will understand, and they'll be able to remember and latch onto. People will remember an image a lot more than they'll remember other things. But unless you want to go into the details of the image and kind of do a description with it and that sort of thing, the subtext might be lost because you're relying directly on the player's interpretation and not necessarily the characters. It is a good place where you could simply make a few rolls where if you've got a character in the group who's an anthropologist or an expert in ancient art techniques or that sort of thing, you could make some rolls and then impart some information that way. So it's kind of your decision about where you want to sort of aim the experience. Is it a purely character thing? Descriptions are fine. If you want to kind of give a specific experience of showing a picture to the players, so that your players are more engaged, that's fine as well. Just kind of think about, what you're doing. Here, of course, is the Denis, the first example of Denis in the series, the Denis language, are on here, and these are the various things that Gen is great, Gen defeated Atreus, rah rah again, Atreus bad, that sort of thing. Now, as a avid fan of constructed languages and of Denis in particular, I could go on for quite a long time on this and on the language, but most people are not going to care at all. So that's a thing you kind of have to be careful about, is that when you're including something in your game that that you have a particular hobby in or a particular interest in, that doesn't mean that your that the players are going to have that, and it doesn't mean that the players are going to be interested in that at all. I would love to run a game where there was all sorts of languages that people had to interact with, and we can get into the details of all those sort of things. And unless it's a group of conlangers or a group of linguists, everybody's going to be just kind of going in there and going, okay, whatever. What does this have to do with my game? Will this be on the test? So yeah, be very careful. Like, if you are, somebody who has a long history in, sailing, you have to be careful about that. If they're out in the sea, you're going to be taught, you're automatically going to say, well, it's really important that you do X and you do Y and you never do this. And the players are going to be like, I know what I know about sailing. I saw by watching James Bond films. And so we're gonna jump this sailboat right over the thing, and um, and do something wild like that. You have to decide: are you gonna um, go into that, and or are you just gonna let the players have fun? Um, I tend to err on the side of players are gonna want to have fun, and so I tried to keep my enthusiasm for, say, the Delaney language um, under control. Yeah, Junie, you were talking about. You said it's very Tolkien. Um, it's another one of those interesting things where there's a lot of language work that Tolkien did. Um, I mean, just like a lot, a lot. Let's see if not that one. I gotta do a couple more. Um, but a lot of it doesn't actually show up in the novels themselves, not counting the appendices, Tolkien's appendices and such, and the occasional, Legolas needs to stop to, sing an old Elvish song, um, which seems to happen a lot in Tolkien. But yeah, so it's sort of, does it serve a purpose in the game, and does it serve a purpose for your players? Yeah. So when I first was playing Riven, I was like, oh, look at that. It's like, oh, there's a bit of space down there. Wouldn't it be cool if I could? Oh wait, oh dude, I can. So one of those places where like, oh man, I figured it out. That's awesome. Okay. Okay, we turn the steam on, obviously to the thing, because that's a symbol and it looks just like it. It's a pretty good example of just, communicating the concept without having to, like, do much explanation. It's like, oh, it looks just like it, and it makes noise, and, but also, it's, one of the important principles of Myst games is that when you don't know what to do, go turn the power on. Make sure the power is on somehow, and then you'll figure it out. I'm trying to remember which one next. Come on, there we go. No, it's the next one. Rawr. Like I said, I don't have this memorized because I haven't. No. They do love revolving buildings, yeah. If you're gonna do a puzzle, like an explicit puzzle in the game, some of the puzzles in Riven are actually kind of in your better sweet spot for that, because it's they're about trying to understand the environment. The sort of, you've got this rotating room thing. If you want to include that in the game, there's a number of different ways that you could do that. I mean, you could describe it, just very simply, and have some players do some roles. You can actually walk them through it. And like I said, I'm not usually a proponent of walking players through puzzles, but like I said, this one's it's relatively simple, and it's very much about figuring out the environment itself. Okay, one more, I think. We'll see if I spend all my time trying to get through this big thing again. But see here, Landris, there's a specific level of Tomb of Annihilation by Wizards that reminds me of Riven. It involves pentagonal rooms and rotating them properly too. See, rotating rooms is something that has a long and noble history. I mean, no one ever really talks about how much of a pain it is to actually get a room to rotate, but it does have sort of a like I said is a very much a staple in a lot of games. Now, if you were decided that you wanted to present this as a puzzle for players in a game, did I just do this again? I think I did it again. Trying to remember. Yeah, Mashabin can make it work. Yeah, Mashabin can totally make it work. But if I were to present this in game, I would kind of start off with the first section being very sort of exploratory, or I would say, you're into this room and there's a button, and it's got this sort of it's got five I would mention the pentagonal nature of the room, because you can't see it from the pictures here, but when you walked in, you definitely go, oh look, there are 5 pillars, and then when it rotates, you can see it moves about so far. And then you kind of go, okay, what do you want to do? And you walk them through the first few steps, I would say. You go ahead and say, okay, you push the button, it moves for a bit, and then you can see this through the hole. And then you might want to use a visual aid or anything like that. I don't remember this part exactly how to do this part, so we're gonna find out. But once you talk about it, and as you're talking about it, once again you're playing a little bit with the subtext. Oh wait, I remember there's another button over there in there. Not there. I remember now. I think this is it, but anyways. Once you can tell the players that have figured out the mechanics of it, or at least they managed to figure it out, like, oh well, it's a rotating, and there's well, there's a door over there, and there's a door over there. What if we just rotate it so that the other doors line up, and then we'll crawl in there, and then we can get through that way. That's the point where if they're correct, you just go, great job, you're correct. And you do the rotation. You go there, you do this, you rotate the room, you get the things you need. Too busy talking. I totally missed blowing up these things. But yeah, don't once they figure out the solution, don't make them walk through the steps of it. One after the other after the other. Just they've gotten, once they've gotten the solution, they have that moment of they figured it out, and part of the reward for that is that things should be easier for them. Chug, 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 chug. Part of the reward of getting through the, all the little details, if you're going to force them to go through it, is that their life becomes easier. And so it's just like, okay, you figured it out. Let's move on. Okay, one more. It's when we open up from the other side, if I remember correctly. Let's see here. Yeah. Doo-doo-doo. other hand, if you're presenting this to your players, and it's very obvious that they're just getting frustrated. Like, I tried this, and no, that didn't work, and I tried this over here, but that didn't work either, and you know, that's the point at which you begin to, think of the state of the game as the players having fun, as opposed to them managing to figure out, your particular puzzle. Um, and I think that unless you have players who are really intent on figuring out their puzzles, um, you know, there's sometimes to just have a bit of a mercy killing, as it were. Um, just time to kill the puzzle and get back to the game. Um, and sometimes that's is how it's gotta work. Oh, did I turn it off? See, you can tell, I don't remember all the details here. So this will be much more of an actual playthrough, as you... Shara von Aether. Welcome to the game. Do all GMs approach things this way? No. I don't think that there are any particular strategy that is something that all GMs do. Hello, fellow nerd. I'm obviously missing something here, so I'll go back to it later. But so I think that's what's important, is that when you decide you're going to be playing a game with somebody, a GM, that you understand what sort of things that those players, what that sort of things that GM does. What sort of games do they play? Here's the other one. There's two of them, yes. There we go. And I forget everything now. Doo-doo-doo. Stolen from Harry Potter. Yeah, totally. That's, But like, for example, I know somebody who's very much sort of an old school Denis GM, and she's very much like I want to do battle tactics, and I want there to be fights on horses, and swords and shields, and really into the ideas that around really into the ideas around chivalry and combat and that sort of thing. And that's going to be a very different sort of game than, say, I would run, where I'm willing to kind of let anything go past if I think it makes a good story beat. And see if that. Close it down. I've noticed that a lot of people who play this don't notice what's going on in the little windows here. That is sort of the one of the weaknesses per se of um, of the sort of slideshow format. I mean, of course, it's that way because that's the technology at the time. But one of the weaknesses is the fact that a lot is determined very much by what slides are being shown, in what order, and that can be really confusing because in a way, the developers kind of have to try to read the minds of the players to go like, oh, when they click over here, they're going to expect X. And, there's no way you can predict all of those things. And sometimes what makes perfect sense to the developers and the QA people and everybody involved turns out not to make much sense to anybody else. So it's like, oh, wait, did I just turn around? I don't know, did I? Come on. Okay, I'm gonna do this. I remember this one. Oh, I remember now. It'll be very interesting to see what Starry Expanse, comes out to be. And partially because, I mean, how much of Riven has to be sort of rebuilt. But at the same time, the new Mist is completely rebuilt, in terms technically wise. But Cyan is very good at kind of finding the edges of what they can pull off visually, and so I think that they will get a lot of it'll look amazing no matter what they do with it, because they have always been so cognizant of the effects of the visuals. Now we call the maglev. Now I think the big thing about Starry Expanse is that it takes a long time to do anything like this. And Starry Expanse has been, working on things for a long time. Because they're a group of, essentially, hobbyists who are doing these things in their spare time. There's only so much that you can do that way. And here's the requisite, roller coaster ride. It seems to happen in, something like this is in every Myst game. Yeah, this was a really amazing experience to go through when it first came out. There was just the fact that it was on 5 CDs, and so oh my god, a game that's on 5 CDs, that's huge. Yeah, when fans do stuff, fans do great stuff. It just takes a while because people's lives and such. And of course, here we've got, we see our first Diddy number, which, most players at the moment have no clue what it is. But it's like, oh, that's an important symbol. Okay, here we go up here. This thing right here, every stream I've watched people play Riven on, if they haven't played Riven before, are like, oh, I wonder what this does, and they'll click on it, and like, oh, what does it do? It's like watching people at a crosswalk. Keep hitting the crosswalk button. Like it's got to do something, right? It's got to do something. Okay, here we are at the next island. We'll head down and see the Sunners. Take a look around. Now, there's a kind of warp outline there. Supposed to be a kind of an extra clue. Let's see here. I forget where each turn is. Here we go. Yes, I mean it's just all just very pretty. Even now, I mean even at on my computer screen, this is a hugely low resolution because it's on ScumVia yet. Like I said, Cyan just always has been good at taking what they have and making it just really amazing. Wait, oh, it turned around. See, there's one of those things where I expected that to be a side turn and it turned me around. So we've got the guy in the house in the little watchtower there who sees us coming. Does the alarm. You're like, oh, look, it's a person. Run away. Ah! It's a protagonist. Everybody run. Ah! But, this isn't a moment that you can kind of, this is something that you can do in a role-playing game. A tabletop role-playing game is that sort of, you can describe these sort of things that happen in, and if you want to give, a sense of there being someone around, but you don't want to, have the players, be dealing directly with people yet. This is a great sort of, somebody sees you coming, and then there's an evidence that the players, the characters and players see that they've been spotted, which tells them that, something has happened. I mean, that there's somebody there, but, it's still a situation of them on their own. I will play with that a lot myself. Once again, because I'm not always very fond of running NPCs. Here we go. And that's the beetle sound. And of course, when you fill the water up, you get the nifty little outline of the beetle, especially how it shows up on the rocks later on. A good number of people I watch playing this do, in fact, catch that, but not everybody. Okay, we can go over here. Go down here. And here we get to, our first of the sub places. And of course, Rivenese water, which is always a favorite. Because it's, it's the obvious visual thing that makes, that lets people know that the rules don't quite work here. Water, which is one of the most basic things in the universe, does not act like water here. And so that's a really great way of indicating unnaturalness. I mean, you can always go with, good old, floating rocks. I mean, they do it in Spire. Lots of places do it. Lots of fantasy books or games will say, like, oh, it's magical. You can tell by the rocks they're floating. But doesn't have to be the only thing. It's usually just, though, taking something that's normal and making it behave in a normal way. I think some of the genius of this is that not only is it, an effect that you usually don't see very much of in gaming or in just, fiction where like the water does weird things like this, but that they have a pseudo-scientific reason for why it does it. Um, I think that's something that's very missed that people tend to forget. Because okay, you put your yeah, Von Aether, like in TV movies, if you want to show it's an alternate universe, you've got Zeppelins. You just need a couple of little bit of shorthand things. I remember reading something, someone describing a conversation with Robert Heinlein, the science fiction author, where part of what he said was that you have to kind of sell, make sure that you sell the unusualness of the environment through small things, like you go to the door and you go to the ship door and the door iris is open. So it's like the iris on a camera or something like that. It's like, okay, suddenly no, okay, some of these things don't fit. It's it may be shorthand, but it's a signal. Let's see here. I'll get back to that later. I'll go back down to the island here first. Let's go over here. And of course, you've got another example of the bug. Now here's the sound. People tend to get that one. That's pretty obvious. Okie doke, and now we're here through the trees and such. Now this is a place where when I play the game, I always get sort of messed up because I always forget, which turns are turns that I can make versus which ones just turn me around, and which ones actually have something like this. It took me so long to figure out that I could go down here when I first played this. It just drove me crazy. It's just like, I'd gone past it dozens of times. And it's like, oh, look, that's cool. It's got a picture of the dagger there, and that's nice. And there's just no sense. There's very little sense that you can go this way. I guess you can kind of see the stairs there, but I wouldn't have. I see that because I know it's there. But so we got our thunder noise there. Yeah, yeah, Junie, it's very well blended in, and that's when you're designing a game, you kind of have to make those decisions about how obvious are you going to make things. But then also when you're describing things to your characters, to your players, you have to decide how obvious you're going to make things. Now, a Rivenese goat. It's a Rivenese scare goat. You're just going to go up to it and you go, ah! And it falls over and goes, it falls over. But yeah, you have to decide how much you're going to be explicit about, and how much you're going to imply, and how much you're going to, kind of cleverly wait for players to ask about. Once again, depends on your players. Some players will have no problems with, an implication, some things spelled out. Some, are playing characters, that are... This is another one that took me forever. I think I actually clicked on that one point and went, what? Oh, really? That's sort of the pixel hunt is sort of a, early adventure game trope, and so I kind of that kind of one of them. Um, but though visually, like you can see right here, it's got the little scrapes right there. So that you know those little scrapes tell you a lot. It's like, oh, okay, this gets turned this way, and it's been used a lot. That's another detail that you could. How much percentage-wise do your players never reveal? That things that you've prepared but they didn't catch. Percentage-wise, once again, it depends a lot on the player group I have, Junie. If I have a group of Myst fans, then they catch things a lot more than, say, somebody who isn't much of a puzzle person. But so sometimes they'll have things set up, and sometimes they'll walk, they'll see like, oh, there's a trail here, and we'll follow it. They'll follow the breadcrumbs to something that I've set up, and sometimes they'll go a completely different direction because they're just like it could be that they just don't see the trail. It could be that they see the trail and they don't think it's interesting. I've had a nice little trail of clues for players, and they've looked at the trail and go, "Wow, that's so obvious! It must be a trap." So we're never ever going to go that way. So I mean, the phrase that's always stolen is that no GM's planning ever survives contact with the players. And that's really, I think, a truism. If there's anything about being a GM that I think that applies to all GMs, is that your players will come up with ideas that you never expected, and that you need to adapt to it. So there are a couple ways things that you can do at that point. Yes, there's a spinning thing here. But there are a couple things you can do at that point. I mean, you can just go, well, I had that thing all there, but they didn't go that way. And so I guess I'll save that for some other game I'm playing someday. Close it, come on. Something that I tend to do quite a lot is I'm very flexible about where things can be placed. So if there's something that I absolutely want my players to do or experience, I have a tendency of putting it in front of where they're going. If it's they're going to stumble on something that's happening. I want them to see that there's someone up in that tower that can see them coming, and that they're going to warn everybody. Stay away, the protagonist is coming. Then I'll just put that wherever they end up, or put that if they go there's a left and a right, and they go left, then they go into it. If they go right, they find it there too. That some people might feel that's a bit of a railroad. You're railroading your players into something, and sometimes it can be. The trick there is to, some people do people do a lot of over preparing, and preparing for very different side trips and all sorts of things. And that's fine if that's what they want to do. Some GMs are like that. GMs have a lot of ideas, and they're like, this part of town is like this, and that part of town is like that. I'll have something idea so that if they go to the west side of town, that their story will go that direction, and I have something for the east side of town, and I have something for if they just decide to stay at home, that sort of thing. And some GMs do that. Some GMs do that because they want to cover all bases. Some GMs do that because they just like coming up with all the ideas. you know, um, and some I don't tend to do that, and mine's kind of half and half in the sense of there are certain things that I want to happen, certain beats I want to hit. I want there to be a conflict here, or I want the players to encounter you know I want the players to have run into Escher at some point or something, and so I will throw Escher in front of what they're doing. At the same time, I personally improvise a lot. Um, and it's the idea that if my players start talking about something and they're really interested in some bit, then I will just start making that important. Um, you know, um, and here's a secret, not so much a secret, but a little back scenes to the Strange Seeds game. Um, the amount of time that the characters have put into security for their little base there, um, surprised the heck out of me. They put a lot of effort into really kind of making that base home, and they're gonna, yeah, exactly, Bunny. The number one rule of jamming: don't give yourself more work than you need to, unless you want to. Um, Same friend I was talking about before. She loves world building. She likes making all the little details, and so you know, she makes a bunch of details that players may or may not ever come across, but she's enjoyed herself. And is able to GM at the same time. So yeah. Um, Laundress, yeah, that sometimes being able to look at an old notebook and pull something else out, yeah, that's another great idea. Is that if you had, you write down ideas that you had, and they may be half formed, like, you know, you have an image of be really cool of players trying to, you know, you know, reach through, something that's on fire to get to a linking book on the other side. That just seems like a really cool scene or something like that. And then you can write that down, or you can map it out as much as you want, or whatever. And then you can say, hey, I don't say what they should do. Oh, I was talking about I had that thing with the fire. Let's put that there. Um. So yeah, I mean, lots of different ideas and lots of different ways of doing it. Um. And I mean, I think that's something that is not done enough in a lot of games is that when you are stuck as a GM, you start making your players do the work for you. What do you think is happening here? Um, you know, okay, so like, oh, so you want to do something there. What's your plan? Um, you know, Especially if there's some sort of um, goal that the players, yeah, yeah, we made all that security and also with one murder rock to circumvent the entire thing. Well, the thing is that, you know, Laundress, is that when you make security, you're inviting people, you're telling people that there's something to be secured. Um, and also, it doesn't help that um, you know, Laundress has been taking um, success that cost every once in a while, and that sort of like leads to calamity. um, okay, so we got the star down there. It's one of the things I think that Riven's very good about is that you have all these different things in different places, and they have effects on the world, but you really don't know exactly what they do until you've searched around. Um, and I think that's how people think in general, is the sense that you get lots of little bits of ideas. I say this here and I pulled this thing there, and then eventually you go, oh wait, it all kind of fits together. I think that's the brilliance of Riven, is that it works like that. Was it Alamnat once said that there are only really two puzzles in Riven, and the rest is just trying to figure out how they all work and where they are. So yeah. Anyways, that's a side thing that I'm trying to include what I'm actually doing on the screen with my monologue. But yeah. Um, but yeah, success at cost makes a story more interesting. Once again, failures should make things happen. You fall forward. Um, and you never want to say just. I mean, you rarely want to say just no. You want to say no, but, or no, and those are all bits from improv that have been adapted into role playing games. Just, no, but you can do this. We have a nice mechanic for that in the story path system. Yeah, definitely. Um, and don't worry about hijacking the unwritten discussion, because I think this is unwritten focused, but I think that Unwritten, as well as any other game, can benefit from looking at the other systems out there and what they do. I mean, because we're not playing Riven very much. I'm talking, but that's what I did for making Unwritten. I mean, first of all, I didn't even write my own system. I went off of Fate, which was already made. Because I figured, why reinvent the wheel? But the I got ideas and inspiration about the discovery mechanics from other systems, looking at game systems like Gumshoe, which is designed to trying to be around different investigation sort of games. Gumshoe is built with the idea that your players are going to figure out. I mean, your characters are going to figure things out. And what's really interesting is what the characters do with the information. So it doesn't make you roll and go, hey, roll to see how many questions you get or anything like that. It just says, oh, you're you're really good at forensics, so you would know this. You're really good at X, you would know that. And then you move on to, okay, now what do you do with the information? And I thought about that for Unwritten, and I decided that that's not what I wanted to do. Let's see. There it is. There's the color there. Timing is always weird. Come on. I suck at the timing of these things. There we go. Yeah, you definitely. Sometimes you have to see it played out. Put out to refine your own ideas, and sometimes you have to, see other people's ideas to decide, I should probably stop talking so I can get this. I'll come back. Yeah, that's where we came from. Is there any other ones up here? That's over there. Yeah. Okay, we'll go back now. Yeah. Von Aether. You've got the, so I'm gonna read it so read it out so it's on the recording as well. Story path has a difficulty of the base roll, and then it has additional complication. So if your difficulty for unlocking a door is 1 and your complication, the door is alarmed, is 2, if you roll enough successes, 3, you can buy off the complication. But you still succeed in the task with just the base difficulty. It just means the complication, still happens. And I really like that idea in the sense that it gives you a kind of a choice about how you want to how you want the roll to go. Because if you're just like, I just need to get through it, then yeah, you can just go ahead and say, okay, the base is fine, and we'll just aim for that. But if you decide that you want something big, or you want a specific sort of success, then you have the option to go for that as well. Another game that has some of that sort of thing is 7th Sea. They have a sort of, I think, a buy system or something. I don't know what term they use, but essentially where you sort of have a certain number of successes ahead of time, and you can kind of choose which ones do you like. It takes 3 successes to to get through the burning room, but if but there's some important spy papers in the room, and you have to you can either spend your 3 successes to get through the burning room without being hurt, or you can spend one of your successes to grab the spy documents, but you don't have enough to get through unhurt. So it's like, oh, therefore you get hurt. Another game that does that really well are the Powered by the Apocalypse games, where the moves in the game very often give you what's called a hard choice, or a choice where essentially it says, here's a list of things that are, here's a list of options. I have taken no damage. I have not alerted anyone. I managed to get something away from my target, and you only get to choose some of them, thus implying that the other ones, don't happen. So if you choose I don't get hurt, but you only have one option, you choose I don't get hurt, that implies that you do in fact make enough noise that someone else can hear it, and you don't get something off the player, that sort of thing. Fate's success at the cost is that sort of mechanic, a way of once again failing forward. I think that a lot more games need that. If for no other reasons, I hate rolling dice and then having it mean nothing. Okie doke, let's spin around. Okay, we're gonna go for another ride. Yay! Okie doke. Ah, here we are. Up to the work. The work chair. And this is sort of, this whole thing here is sort of proof that, Gin really is a really bad designer. Because who designs stuff like this? I mean, this is the usability on this is horrible. Always to say that, I always used to say that, the concept of, user experience is completely foreign to me. There's no concept of them like, this should be easy to use. Okay, so this is the one that's supposed to kind of give you, later on when you find the thing about Gen, watching people. This is supposed to be the thing that they're watching. He's watching, the camera he's using. And as you can see, it goes around, and you can kind of actually see the outline of the fish here. But yeah, just again, it's just like, Denis are just like, how would you ever design something that worked like that? I mean, really. As smart as Denis are, you'd think that they'd put instructions on things. Blue. Green. Yellow. Yeah, no Alzheimer's. If it was hard to create, if it was hard to make, then it should be hard to use. And if you're a real respectable Denis, you'll be able to figure it out. Denis don't need instructions. Denis don't need user-friendly interfaces. We're smarter than that. Sorry, I may have a little bit of a rant on that. Here comes Mr. Work. It's like, hey, how's it going? You're not the bald guy. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of players, when they get to this part, think that they're supposed to be doing something more right here. This is something they should be, interacting with more. When it's just, obviously there to, give you the colors as well as to expose you to the work and the sound that the work makes. I think that once again underlines the fact that you as a GM or designer will probably think about things differently than your players will, and the things that seem obvious to you will not be obvious to them. And so you kind of you roll with it. Here we go. On the other side, if you really want to get a good sort of Miss Denis feel to a game, think about some odd ways about how some of the machinery can work. Because that's sort of like one of those signature Myst things, is that, none of the machines are straightforward, or they kind of, move in weird ways, or they accomplish their thing in weird ways. So, instead of just having an elevator, have the elevator, open up, sideways, or it's a drawbridge, and it goes down into some sort of liquid, all those sorts of things. Those little details can go a long way. Yeah. This is one of those iffy things where you don't quite realize, the fact that, there's this one place where, you can, where there's things on both sides. Yeah. Myst was steampunk before steampunk was cool. Absolutely. Funny thing is that I used to go to a couple steampunk conventions, and no one ever talks about Myst. And I kept bringing it up, in like when people are in panels and talking about steampunk this, and I'm like, well, the Myst game, and like there's like a certain class age of people who are like, oh yeah, yeah, I played that. You're right. And then there's a bunch of people who are just like, what? And I'm hoping that the new version of Myst will get Myst more into people's consciousness. More into the general consciousness again. Okay, here we go. Mapping island. Where's button? Button. Who's got the button? There it is. Yes. Steampunk is what happened when Goss discovered Brown. Indeed. So of course, here, mapping island was where we turn on the different maps. This is where you learn that all these things fit into a square, and which square, which shape goes to which island. These are really cool animations, and they're really, really, really slow. And I know there's a reason for that, both technical and artistic, and it's just painful. When I watch people play, this is the part where they're just like, oh my god, we're gonna have to wait for it. It's like, okay, we get that one goes down. And if you ever want to make yourself really popular to someone who's streaming Riven, and playing Riven for the first time, when they get to when they start to complain about the animations, you point out that if you hit escape, it jumps to the end of the animation. Yeah, and for pink, yeah, you use escape a lot when figuring out this part. Yeah, you tell them about the escape button, and suddenly you are the favorite person in the audience. For the streamers, just like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, and they just, And I don't know if you can be kind of like get off my lawn, old person, and say kids today they don't want to wait, but it's just real slow. Of course, those buttons come over here, and they turn these on, and it creates the little maps, which you then use to find where all the spheres are, so that you can then use them later on. I think I missed one because I'm just playing. Like, oh, look at that. Escape can be a problem for impatient people, though, because they miss information if they skip the wrong things. This is true. This is very true. And I know that, I've had this problem before as well, as my wife will tell you. there were parts of Uru where I had a tendency just to run through, and keep myself on run, and like, oh, check that thing over there, and then I would run past the obvious, like where is the journey cloth? Well, it was over back there, and I ran past it. Yeah, this is like one of those pin boards where you press your hand and it holds the impression. Exactly. I mean, that's immediately what I thought. I'm pretty certain that's what they were thinking of at the time as well. Hey. There we go. I haven't really been talking much about Riven while I'm playing. I've just been talking about kind of random things, but I do think that Riven as a storyline does adapt itself relatively well into an RPG game. Maybe not, the particular puzzles and the mechanics necessarily, but this just the general story. I mean, Myst doesn't really have an ongoing story. It's not necessarily a flaw or anything like that. It's just, it's a design choice. It's, you're kind of finding things after, figuring out things after they've happened. But there's still, in Riven, there is still, there are still things happening. And that, your players have a chance to affect. So, even if the specifics of, how you get through, how you get certain things to turn on or off, are different. Riven itself makes a very good outline for a game, and you could even be very sort of specific in the sense of, you could use the maps of the islands as sort of maps for your game. Just you kind of think of where you want the other NPCs to be, and that sort of thing. Mistform was dictated by the storage space and computing limits of the time. That too. But I mean, I think that, to a certain extent, actually, let me go back here. I just want to go across. It's also the sort of game that, the Miller brothers like to play. It's the sort of experience that they like themselves. Because, I mean, most sci-fi games have some of those same elements and feels to them. I think there's a certain aspect to some of these to Myst games that are very reflective of Robin and Rand themselves, especially Rand over the years, because he's the one who's been kind of focused on all of it. Rand really likes exploring things. He loves geocaching, that sort of thing. Oh god, yeah, I gotta open up from the other side, don't I? Oh no, I have to go through the vent. That's it. Which means Book Island. It was still limited. Oh, absolutely. It was definitely limited, and that had a lot of effects of it, definitely. I mean, there's there's very iconic sort of feels to things that you have to use the fact that, QuickTime came out in the middle of Myst, and they're like, oh, let's use that. We can use color here, things like that. But I also think that, some of it is, who these people are. Rand really loves exploring things, so his games involve a lot of exploring. I'm going here now. Let's go back up here. No, that's that. I don't want to go there. I want to go this way. Yeah, Real Mist only came out five years later. So a lot was changing in the industry and technology. Come on. I should be hitting escape myself. You know, a lot. You know, I think I remember Rand saying once that a lot of what made Myst so successful was just being in the right time and the right place. I think that's the case to a certain extent. Cyan was one of the first places to really try to make something, pretty is not the right word, but artistic. And that hit at a time where the computers were just starting to be able to do that, and that the methods of getting that information around, i.e. CD-ROMs, were becoming popular too. I'm gonna go down again, I think. I think I may be turned around, but we'll see. One thing that's always kind of struck me is that, Myst was very revolutionary at the time, which, but what Myst was, the revolution, Myst was the first of a number of things to do what it did. But then the rest of the world caught up. And so what Myst looks like now, to modern eyes, is not only dated, but it looks like it's doing something that's relatively common. I mean, the escape the room, genre of little flash game, for instance. I mean, Myst looks just like that. The technology had finally caught up and made something that made Myst look simple. Yeah, like Junie, you said, it was revolutionary, and it was. But I think it's one of those revolutionary things that it's hard to remember without the context. I think that, Myst fans tend to remember that context. And I think that, unfortunately, D&D did that, Yeah, it's like, or the people who are just like, Kanye West was playing with this old guy named Paul McCartney. It's so nice of him, of Kanye to give some old guy, a platform to, so it's like, oh my God, my brain, ow. But yeah, I think that because Myst is not in line with kind of the way that the software industry and video game industry went, that it got forgotten. Except by us fans, who were so affected by it. And there are a lot more fans out there than I think even Cyan knows. One thing that happened, We have a lot of Mish t-shirts, Uru t-shirts and those sort of things. Especially Ellery, who is smaller than me, and so there are more t-shirts her size, and so she tends to wear them more often. And almost every time she goes anywhere with a Mist t-shirt, she runs into a Mist fan. Some of that just maybe Ellery, because that's the sort of person she is. But like she had like a bump on her neck or something like that, and we went I forgot, we went to urgent care last week, I think. And she was wearing a Mist shirt, and one of the nurses was like, "Mist, I remember that. I was such a big fan of it." And then we go through the, she goes through the, there's a fan community, and did you know that there was an and people go, "Really? Oh my gosh, why didn't anybody tell me this? I never knew." And that was our experience when we helped with the 25th anniversary booth for Mist at Geek Girl Con. Was a number of people who came by and went, "Oh my god, this was a part of my childhood. I love this game." And all the people who were that age and who were taking their kids around Geek Girl Con, and them saying, like, pulling their kids over to the booth and like, "This is the game I used to play when I was your age. My dad played this with me." I think it's just very easy for people to forget that effect, and how important it was at the time. I don't know, and maybe that's just a perspective of someone who's getting old. Yeah, this section of the game would much easier with freeload. Yes, exactly. I'm trying to remember. We should do the switch here. Did I not turn it off? Right, I probably didn't. Like I said, I don't remember this one as much as... Do I have to do this? Yeah, same with channel with Mist. Fine. Oh, I probably need to turn the water off the other way. Yeah, I'll probably do. Oh, I still got the fire on. I forgot how to turn the fire off. Let me put it that way, I forget. Ugh. Let's see here. Let's see what that goes that way. That one goes up there. I'm not looking up. Yeah, see, looks like you get old, you forget shit. Oh, sorry, probably shouldn't say that like that. See, I've lost my train of thought now, so I gotta remember everything. Like, oh, follow the pipe down. Oh, yeah. Sorry, my brain, I just managed to, like, totally blow my... I'm being lever blind. Yeah. I probably am. There is a lever, and I am not seeing it. Yeah, that's what I always do. Is there a lever over here? Got that. Arrgh. Goes down. This is the I'm a mist expert. Her. But yeah. Yeah, just tell me. I mean, I'm here not so much to figure things out as I am to discuss things. So if I'm missing it, just point it out. Backseat drive. Go for it. It's on the pipe on the right. Oh. Duh. I've never heard the term lever blind before, actually, but it's very, very good stealing it. Because, like, wow. Da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Okay, here we go. And of course, here is the infamous, you need to look behind the doors moment that Cyan is so fond of. Yeah, the bane of every Riven blood. Okay. Ah, no, not those! Ah! And I mean, going back to the whole Unwritten thing, since we're kind of talking about that, yeah, this is when I got caught on to, no, stop it, is, there is a, what's the word I'm looking for? There is a, I'm stuck. There is a temptation. Yeah, how often do they really do close the doors behind them? Yes. I think there's a temptation as a GM to go ahead and say, to go like, oh wow, you forgot that. I think I'm gonna, somebody forgot to do the thing, sort of, and then you kind of give them crap for that. And you make your players, penalize your players for not, doing the obvious thing, or I'm trying to remember. Yeah. I probably need to go back and turn the power off over here or something. I'm trying to remember. And the fact is that Cyan is just like, you know, so smug. It's like they do it twice. You just do it. You just figure it out. I'm like, oh my god! And then you're running back and forth through here, and it's just like, no, wait, it's behind the next one. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think there's the GM. There's a temptation to do this sort of thing, like to like if the players don't like stop things behind them, or don't check behind them, or don't explicitly say well, you didn't shut the door behind you, did you? I think you can only get so far with that. And there we go. All about timing, which I don't have. But I think you can only get so far with that. Yeah, I think so, yeah. Which, I mean, I have to go back to that central thing and turn the steam over. Come on. There we go. I mean, yeah, Judy, the gotcha moments can be hard. They can be good for the right group of people. But I think that I think a GM is used to trying to be clever, and so thus you can, kind of get to the point of like, oh, I think I'll, I mean, as a GM, you're sort of trying to be clever for the universe in general, because you represent everything. You're supposed to provide challenges, but I think that those gotcha moments are not always as fun as they might seem. Let's see here. And so you have to be careful about that. One of the main rules in Fate, and I repeat it in Unwritten, because at the beginning they'll say, as a player, here's what you're supposed to do. Here, as a GM, here's what you're supposed to do. And then what everybody's supposed to do is to make everyone feel awesome. We're all trying to support each other to do something cool. I forget how to turn this off now. But, I mean, we're all trying to, we're all trying to support each other to come up with cool, to make each other have cool things happen to them, do cool things, have cool events. And so, and I think especially in a game like Unwritten, that sort of, traditional GM character, GM player antagonism doesn't work very well. And I mean, you still kind of want to be devious, I think, as a GM, because you want to provide. Yeah, Landra says there's a difference between a gotcha moment and a moment of realization. In the example of the gelatinous cube, there was a specific group of players that had voiced they didn't want to get too complacent in assuming things were safe. In other games, you can still get a cool reveal without having the, well, look what you missed here, and have the players come through the realization of their own discovery. That's very, very true. And see, that the gelatinous cube example that you gave is very, sounds like it was tuned to that group of players. They wanted danger. They wanted, they were asking to be called on those things. Well, this is what it sounds like. And then of course when they say if we're complacent, hit us on it, then you do. I mean that's part of the contract. Um, but um, that's once again it has to be what everybody is pulling towards. Um, and some players like that sort of mental battle. You know, I'm going to try to be clever, and I want to be clever against. I want to be clever against the world or whatever. You know, yeah, and like Lander says, that's why session 0 is so important when you're starting up a new group. And I mean, any game, I think, because there's so many different things that you can bring to it. Um, and I've played, numbers of games that were awesomely run by great GMs, and I had a horrible time in them. Not because they were jamming badly, and not because I was playing badly, but what I wanted to do, or the assumptions that I had about how things worked, were different than the GM's assumptions or what they were trying to do. And so I kept trying to go, down road A, and they kept, going down road B, and I kept getting lost. And I really hated this game because I had all these cool ideas and none of them mattered because I was on a different page than the GM. Now, most of the other players had gotten on the right page with the GM. They had a great game. Um, so yeah, I mean, you know, this is definitely a learn from my mistakes sort of thing. What time is it? It's been a couple hours. I'm gonna take a break. Um, I'm a little tired, more tired today than normal, so I may not go much long after a break. But I'm gonna go ahead and take a break right now, about 10 minutes or so, and we will come back and we will talk more. Shut up. Hello, I'm back. Hopefully you are too. I don't know if that was actually 10 minutes or not. I forgot to look at the clock, so it's been that sort of day. Um, so I probably am not going to go too much longer here. But while I'm at this point, um, you know, I've just been running around mostly in circles in Riven, because as you do. Um, I don't know if there's any questions or topics um, that y'all have on your mind um, when it comes to role playing games, myth stuff, or whatever that we can definitely talk about. Um, so if you have an idea of something you'd like to talk about or something that's burning, um, go ahead and stop it. Um, put it in the chat, and we can talk about it for a bit. If not, I'm just going to keep futzing around. Funk. The Gen font, which is, one of the things I've noticed is that players have a horrible time reading Gen's writing. I tried to use some of this in Unwritten. So actually, Cyan allowed me to have this font as well as Atris's font. But it didn't work out so well just because it is really hard to read. I mean, it's definitely, I can see how Gen, you can think, Gen would definitely write, this way, and it seems realistic, but it can be really hard to read, especially at lower resolutions. So, just little things. Let's see here, and then we have this here, which talks about, this is our clue to what number 1 is. This is another one of the more obscure parts, puzzles, I think, in the sense that, it's like, oh, it doesn't make any noise. What kind of animal doesn't make any noise? And I think that's a bit of a leap. I mean, I kind of got at it more from a more, how to put it? It took me a long time to make that leap. And so the thing I noticed is that you've got all these things that, like in mini myth games, you've got all these little bit things that you can interact with and see. A lot of people, once they start getting into a myth game, start to look at everything as a hint. It's like, oh, this is obviously some sort of pattern that's going to be important elsewhere. It's like, no, it's just eggs. Eggs are cool. And of course, here we have the, demonstration of how the water works in Riven. Once again, giving us that sort of pseudoscience feel. Steampunk or whatever you want to call it, and I think that's an important part of Myst, is that as mystical as everything seems, there does seem to be sort of at least a pseudoscientific underpinning. Despite the fact that you are, in fact, putting your hand on a book and transporting to another universe, it isn't magical. It's wondrous, but it isn't magical, and that's kind of, I mean, that's a hard line to walk, I think. I think the steampunk aesthetic kind of keeps you well anchored on the whole sort of, there's some sort of science involved. But yeah. And here's a tangent. By the way, can people hear me? I just want to make sure that people can hear what that I didn't mess up something when I came back. Um, so if you're in the chat, toss me a line. Let me know you're there. Oh, good. Thank you, Junie. So here's another bit of a tangent. When we were play testing Unwritten, one of the alpha tests actually involved running through a version of Riven. And it was run by my wife Ellery. And yeah, the rules don't have to be consistent. Although the rules consistent, they don't have to match. But I do think there's that sort of sense of, I think you can have a sense of it being, not just consistent, but with the sense of that, that there's something, it's something not magical, and that there's more of a science to it. It's hard to describe, but anyways. But yeah, one of our alpha tests was run by Ellery and went through part of Riven, and she came up with what I thought was a really interesting variant. Is that at one point in her game, there's an underwater hatch. And what she described is that around the hatch there were a bunch of heating elements, so that when they were being led to when the players were being led to somewhere, that she describes the person swimming down and then turning on a switch, turning on the heating elements around the hatch. The heat causes the Riven water to move away. It blows air, and it kind of, the elements blow hot air in there essentially, and so the Riven water moves away and creates a bubble of air underwater just around the hatch, which you then get into, and then you can get into the hatch without without the water coming down and all that sort of thing. And then once you go in, you close the hatch, you turn off the heat, water comes crashing down, and sort of a Rivenese airlock. I just thought that was really clever. Just taking one of those little details, from the game, how Rivenese water works, and then turning it into something else. I think you could utilize it in a game in a number of ways, especially like in Unwritten. If you want the Rivenese water to be important, and you're running around in Riven, you can place the on the age the aspect of Rivenese water, with the understanding that everybody knows, and the players know what it means for Rivenese water to be Rivenese water and how it acts. And so the players can come up with ideas of how to use Rivenese water in different ways to solve problems, and then tag that aspect with a fate point to get pluses on rolls, to declare details and that sort of thing. So there's a place where you can take the detail of how Rivenese water acts, turn it into a game lever, turn it into something that has mechanical game weight, make an aspect such that people can tag it, and when they invoke that aspect by tagging it and spinning a fate point, that has a discernible numerical effect on their rolls. And so I think that those details become very important in a fate game. And don't feel like you have, as a GM, you have to come up with all of the aspects ahead of time. You might have some things that you think are important for an age, um, or a scene or such, and you know they're running through some underground cavern in Riven, and it's incredibly dark and it's wet and slippery. So you have an aspect that says it's incredibly dark and wet and slippery. So sure, yeah, it's important. But very often, how you describe the scene on the fly will suggest possible aspects. And things that players say about the scene will suggest aspects. Landra still has a blank aspect on his sheet, and we've already passed major milestone. Yeah, I mean, Fate is okay to play loose, and I play looser than most. But yeah. But yeah, don't think you have to come up with all the aspects ahead of time. Don't think that you are the only one that can come up with aspects. If the player has a great idea, feel free to run with it. And any detail in a scene can become an aspect at any time. I mean, the only real difference between an aspect and a detail is aspects matter, and details are just details. So if suddenly a detail starts to matter, start treating it like an aspect. You can say it, it's like, well, everybody's talking about, keeps talking about the murder rocks. So, the murder rocks there are murder rocks in, Unai. And that's an aspect. And so let's go ahead and use it. Yeah, like Lander says, you can be very flexible with Fate and Unwritten. You never have to be married to anything unless you decide to be. And technically, I think you can do that in any game, but Fate really lends itself to that, as well as a lot of more modern games, whether it's Story Path or Fate or Powered by the Apocalypse or Cortex Prime, etc., etc., etc. What's it? Forged in the Dark is another big one. But yeah, I mean, I think that being flexible is a strength. And I think that, games like Unwritten lend themselves to that because of how much of the game is focused on discovery, innovation, that sort of thing. Unwritten is really based around having the cool idea and having that aha moment. And so, and in a game, Pathfinder's pretty crunchy. GURPS, yeah. Interesting. I used to play GURPS a lot in the sense that I had my players make characters in GURPS, and then I would just eyeball all the rolls from that point on. Because I liked how detailed and the GURPS character creation was. But I said I never cared much about the details. Yeah, GURPS was great for whatever you wanted. GURPS was also great for my college career because early GURPS books were written like textbooks. And so, I used some of them as reference books for some of my papers. I had a paper in Latin class about, Latin culture and, Latin culture. Roman culture. And so I referenced GURPS Imperial Rome. There's all kinds of references in GURPS Scarlet Pimpernel and all kinds of stuff like that. So, yeah. I kind of miss those sorts of supplements, but people don't quite make those much anymore. Anyways. But yeah. So yeah, I just always thought that was kind of just a really clever way of doing it, and you can then, take that from being a clever idea into being a workable component in a game. Okay, I gotta unlock the door from here. Ooh. Oh, no. I remember what other things I was supposed to do in here. I'm sure there were some. Ah, yes. Gen's second-rate books. It's another aspect. Gen's cut and paste linking books. It's another thing you can use for a great aspect. It's up there with, Idris's bad parenting. Okie doke. Trying to remember now, but let's go down this way. That takes us just back there. Oh, that's where I meant to be. I meant to go the other way. Did I turn it off? I must have turned it off. God damn it. Yeah. I have to go back around. But yeah, once again, anybody has any comments or questions or anything? Otherwise, I'm gonna run in circles a few times. And yeah, the Steam's not going the right way. I forgot to call a thing. Yeah, Tomei would just climb down the wall. That's the strength, once again, the strength of role-playing games is you can say, dude, I would just climb over the wall here. And then you can go, oh, I think I'll just climb over the wall. That's something that, a thing that you can't really get away with in a video game, unfortunately. Anyways, so speaking of running out of steam, I am running out of steam a bit myself. Said I'm kind of running low this week. So I think I'm going to start wrapping up. And then we'll come back to Riven next week and we'll finish that up. Save game. Save. Also, I don't want to save. I type it in. Okay, there we go. That's now. Good to know. I'll actually save it separately. I can see if I can spell right. Save early and save often. Thank you for coming by and listening to me talk once again and watch me go in circles in Riven. Hopefully I'll be a little more conscious next week so that there'll be less circles. There'll probably be as much talking. But and definitely, think about the sort of things that you guys want to talk about. I can fill space. No problem. But if there are things that, either it be ideas, for games, questions about mechanics, comments about the game Unwritten or about Riven. I'd love to hear hear what you guys have to think, what you guys think, and we can talk about it while I'm hopefully not going in circles again. Okie doke. Everybody have a great week. Remember, if you like what we do, there's the Patreon. I know a lot of you in the chat already are, and when you can see the names of the people who are at the squee levels and higher when I do the starting and stopping of the stream and be right back, and so that people who um, you know pledge that much, you can see your if you pledge that much, you can see your names there. Um, I'm hoping to try to eventually get this channel to affiliate on Twitch, so then I can start offering bonuses and perks on Twitch to my various to our various patron levels. Um, we'll see how that works. I may have to do a couple more extraneous streams because they want like seven streaming sessions in a month for affiliate, and I only tend to really do 4 or 5 according to the schedule. So, and who knows? I may randomly pop up and do a random stream at some point with whatever I happen to be playing at that point. But yeah, you guys have a great week. And remember, buy Cyan games, give Cyan money, so that we can have more cool Cyan things. Shara.